The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. A very big week ahead. Of course, it is the Woodlands Northern Derby. Can Merlin turn the tables on Sherlock this week? And of course, we have the Pascoes, the Jewelers, Northern Oaks with the dominant filly Millwood Nike looking for 11 in a row. All of that to come up on the show, but Michael Guerin joins us as per the norm. That isn't the biggest news of the week though, Michael, because you broke the story around the NZTAB and possible partnerships going forward. As I say hi to you.
Yeah, hi Greg, big hi to everybody around the country and of course our viewers in Australia. The slumbering giant, which is Alexandra Park, really comes back to life this Friday. What a massive meeting. Oaks, Derby, most of the contenders for the race by Grins and maybe a few new contenders in the free-for-all and the 2-year-old races, the first features of the season. So we have an absolutely beautiful meeting on Friday night. But you're right, Greg, the business of racing getting to the pointy end of the negotiations between 3 overseas bookmakers and the New Zealand TAB. Now, this is not a sale of the TAB, just clarify this. What the New Zealand TAB has been negotiating with who I believe to be Sportsbet, Entain, which is the parent company of Ladbrokes and Neds, for those who need names they know, and Tabcorp, which is the Australian TAB. So what they've been negotiating is how they can get them to take care of some of the business of running a day-to-day New Zealand TAB. Now that could include anything from odds setting to bookmaking, to trading, to retail, to broadcasting, or even just things like finance and the executive teams. So what they're saying is, how much of this can somebody else do for us to decrease our expenses, increase our profit, and therefore increase our ability to pay more money to the codes, and of course, sporting organisations. Now, this is a very long and detailed process, but this week, the board of the New Zealand TAB will receive 3 official offers. Now, not only would this potentially, if it's agreed to by the minister, that's Kieran McAnulty, the racing minister, who has to sign off on this, Greg, not only would this potentially decrease the output and therefore the costs of the New Zealand TAB, and increase the money that comes back to the industry, but you would suggest there'll be some version of a sweetener in the deal. There'll be some version of, well, we'll pay you this for the right to do this for you, which could very quickly correct what was a fall off in the returns to the industry in the last quarter. It's complicated stuff, but what it means is, for most punters watching this, it won't change their life very much at all. There could be some branding changes. But for the inside, the big machine of the New Zealand TAB, it could mean that some of this is done more slickly, there's more scale, better technology available to it, and maybe some offers that aren't available right now. Also importantly, for the first 12 months, all 3 offers have said there'll be no job losses in New Zealand. There could even be job increases because of the time zone we fall into, Greg. A lot of support and call centres and tech centres, it actually makes sense to have them running in New Zealand, because then when the English, for example, or those in that part of the world knock off work for the day, New Zealanders are going to work, and you have a nice 24-hour clock of support structures around your business. Complicated stuff. Isn't going to affect too many people watching this, but should be a positive, as long as the minister makes sure some of the protections for New Zealand punters are written into those contracts. And speaking to Kieran McAnulty yesterday, he is very invested in that. So we're not going to get into too much this morning because there's lots of other things to talk about, but the process is very, very much underway. And Greg, it's at the pointy end.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and thanks for the explanation too, Michael. We'll watch this space in that regard. Speaking of watching this space, what's ahead for you on your box seat? We will preview the big night, Alexandra Park, the Derby and the Oaks. We'll update the race by Grins. We'll have our IRT Maiden win of the week. We'll preview Addington Raceway. Greg Sugars will drop in. Michael catching up with him about his crossing the Tasman and what's ahead for he and his wife Jess Tubbs, of course. We'll have the Team Teal results and our hand-milking best bets of the week. But it is the 107th running of the Woodlands Derby. Here's the key lead-up race, the first of the Sires Stakes heats with Garrards. And here's Sherlock. He looked flat here, Michael. He got in a wee bit round that final bend, but once he balanced up, he got to sooner the better. That's Merlin storming home. Peaked on his run slightly, which you would imagine he would improve on going into this week's Derby. And the most important thing, he comes up with a plum barrier draw of 2, Michael.
I thought Sherlock was really good and found like a Derby winner inside the last 100 metres. He was actually holding them at the line and potentially going away from sooner the better. But the barrier draw has changed everything. Merlin has been the worst barrier drawed horse I've ever seen, Greg. He's had 12 career starts so far. He's never drawn inside barrier 5 in his life, and most of the time he's drawn barrier 5 or 6, they've been in 5 or 6 horse fields. He's drawn barrier 8 3 times, and he's drawn the second line 3 times. This is in a 12-start career. For the first time in his life, he gets a barrier inside 5. He's got the gate speed from barrier 2 to cross Sinbad, that would seem likely. And then he's on the marker pegs, where most derbies are won from. And he potentially can stay there, or more than likely, hand the lead to stablemate Sooner the Better, who's a good, hard-running little horse. And that means Sherlock and Son of Mac have to work outside the leaders at some stage harder, probably covering 6 to 8 more lengths than Merlin. If it works out that way, Greg, he is absolutely clear top pick, because he's at least as good as these horses, and I think 2 or 3 of the other better horses in the race are going to cover a lot more ground. I think Merlin will win the Great Northern Derby.
All right, he opened at $2.70, and even in the short period of time that market's been open, he's now into $2.20, around $3 for Sherlock to the second row. So he punches through directly behind Merlin, and Blair Orange back in the bike this week. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of tactics he adopts and how early he puts pressure into the race. Mark Purden with Sinbad from the inside, and obviously $4.50 its price, and about $15 Sooner the Better. Who's to like? And I thought Charlie Brown was excellent in that race too, Michael. One of the better bets in this race may well be Sooner the Better, top 3, top 4, because he's going to be in the right spot to at least get close enough to finishing into one of those spots.
And he's a really good stayer, Greg. I don't see attackers per se. I mean, if he leads, sure, horses will come up outside him, but they're not going to be eyeballing him from the 800. And Sooner the Better will easily go somewhere between 318 and 320 for 2,700 metres mobile. It's incredibly hard to come wide in these derbies and win. I think Merlin's probably in the right spot to win. I think he'll start close to $1.60 for the main reason that there's no reason not to back him, and nobody's going to want to back anything else. Like, as good a horse as Sinbad is, he'll probably start $8. And I really like Sherlock. I think he's closed the gap on Merlin enormously, but he's enormously disadvantaged. Yep. And he might start close to $4, somewhere between $4 and $5. So Merlin will be a lot shorter. The TAB bookmakers gave you a thumping big chance there at 2.7. And I agree with you. Sooner the Better, top 3, top 4, because over a hugely long period of time, Greg, in derbies and these days in cups and in Oaks races over the longer distances, the marker pegs are just everything. Absolutely everything. Very few horses come from off the marker pegs to win those major staying races, because quite simply, you're covering 2 lengths per bend, slightly less at Addington. If you're going around 5 bends, that's a lot of lengths.
Yep, absolutely it is. Moving from that Group 1 to the Pascoes, the Jewelers at Northern Oaks, and the dominant filly has been this girl, Millwood Nike. Gets to the outside. Right about here you thought, she's going to have to be good tonight. 3 strides later, Michael, she went straight past Advance Party and grabbed her 10th career win.
I think ever since we saw her start racing, we've been waiting for an Oaks for her. She just looks a ready-made 2,700 metre horse, big, tall filly, long stride. More importantly, because she keeps winning, Greg, she gets the respect factor. Now, Advance Party, who got close there, has got barrier 8, so it's a reversal of the Derby. Mark Purden gets the luck. Brother Barry Purden, with his horse, and Scott Phelan, don't get the luck. So Advance Party's up against it. The interesting one was Carlua Flyby, because had a gallop last week. Before that, led and wasn't at her best in the New South Wales Oaks. Her confidence is down. The confidence in Millwood Nike is very high. What I see happening is Carlua Flyby potentially blasting to the lead, and then, Greg, do they hand up? Pretty darn sure they do. And that should be it. $1.10, no real spoil for the punters. Even the multi-takers, I'll be careful with $1.10. But, Greg, I just cannot see how she doesn't lead, how Carlua Flyby doesn't sit on her back more than likely, and how they don't run the Quinella. So fixed odds Quinella or even Exacta may be the way to go there. I put it to Mark Purden this week. I said, if the Derby and the Oaks were different nights, would you start on the Derby? He said, we would think about it.
Good question.
I said, how would you go? He said, very, very close. So I think she's as good as the Colts, particularly over distance. I think she'll win the Oaks this week, because I just think there's enough doubts draw-wise or where they are mentally about the key runners. And the only horses in the race who can beat her are Advance Party and Carlua Flyby, Greg. I'm not sure either of them in the right space to do so.
Yeah, well, those words from Mark Purden will echo in many people's ears when you consider he's had the likes of Adore Me, who placed in a Derby, and Amazing Dream, who won a Derby. So, yep, it shows you how highly he does rate Millwood Nike. So $1.10 for her, $8.50 for Carlua Flyby, $10 Advance Party crawled by the draw. Now, Alexandra Park do have some tables still available at the top of the park. They also have a draw for a diamond ring, courtesy of Pascoes, the Jewelers. You just need to be on course, get yourself a race book, fill in the entry form, and I think it's valued at about $1,800. So, yeah, well worth getting involved there. Go to alexandrapark.co.nz for further details. New York Minute was excellent last week. In front for Zev Meredith, that's Kango, who chased the whole way trying to get near them, and Smithy's Terror getting to the outside. David Butcher just giving Kango a quiet run home because he had chased for a long time and was first up. But New York Minute was excellent here, home in 28, and horses seem to run for Zev Meredith, don't they?
Yep, and I think Anna Donnelly's team, she's doing as good a job as she can with these horses. These aren't standout open class horses outside Kango, but she puts them in the right races and they're fit and they're pretty well mannered so they can step and run. Kango gets himself into the City of Auckland free for all this week, Greg, and there's still 3 spots available for the race by Grins. I think there's 4 players for those. And I think he's a horse who, if he was able to place this week, and he's probably in a situation where he can be driven more aggressively than some of his rivals, then yeah, he might sneak one of those spots. For me, I think it's Krug, Alta Wise Guy, who's in the same race, Kango, and later on you'll hear from Greg Sugars about 888. I don't see the last 3 spots being filled by something else unless we see something change in the next 2 weeks. I think they're the big 4, and 2 of them race this week in that City of Auckland free for all, where copy that, Greg gets the draw to really dominate.
Yeah, he does, and confirmation that Blair Orange will drive him. Looking at the market, Michael, you mentioned the bookmakers giving you a spoil before. They have here $2.70 for copy that. You would think he'd go straight past Smithy's Terror, dominate from the top end, and if that unfolds, then geez, got to be hard to beat the dual IRT New Zealand Cup winner. Alta Wise Guy, $18. $3.50 self-assured. Your assessment of him and Akuta in Old Town Road, who, you know what I think of Old Town Road, but both he and Akuta surely would be going back at the start here.
Yeah, spoken to most of the drivers involved. The one horse who might roll forward, I don't think they will, but maybe they'll chance their arm because he's fit, is Nicolas Cage. But I do see Copy That jumping to the lead. I don't see a lot of pressure in the race. Spoke to Mark Purden about self-assured. He said, I'm happy. He'll need the run, and we're not going out there to do anything crazy with him, so that makes perfect sense. Akuta is going back at the start. Just here is Copy That. This is the workouts last weekend, so obviously looking for the horse outside the leader. Old Town Road is coming from last here, so have a little look at this. Old Town Road good, that Copy That better. So this is last weekend, so he's had a run back since the Hunter Cup bleed, and then he's had this win. Looking at that, Greg, he's all right. He's in a good spot, Copy That. So's Old Town Road, but Old Town Road spoke to Zachary Butcher. He said, I can't see us doing anything but going back at the start, trying to find a spot. Doesn't mean we can't win, but what we're talking about, Greg, is Copy That, the dual New Zealand Cup winner, almost certainly being in front and probably winning this race without a lot of pressure from Self-Assured, Old Town Road and Akuta. Let's not forget, this is a lead up to $1 million race, Greg, in 3 weeks. And this stake is 4.5% of the $1 million.
Yep.
So nobody's going out here to make too much of a hero of themselves. Not saying it's going to pan out that way. Maybe Kango, they roll the dice early. Maybe Nicolas Cage. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it'll happen either. The 31st running of the Auckland Co-op taxis, 300, 3,000, the free-for-all there. Looking forward to that, as I am the Cardigan Bay Stakes for the 2-year-olds. And we need to go back and have a look at this performance, Michael, from Cold Chisel. You made him the best bet of the week, and love the way he found the line, although there were a couple that found it just as well.
He was good. I don't think there's anything between this crop yet. There's not that dominant type 2-year-old, as we see Always Be Elite get very close to Cold Chisel down the outside. I don't think there's a dominant 2-year-old who's just going to take this by the scruff of the neck and win. Escape Artist from Barrier 1 was really good, winning last time out. You're Doing Amazing Sweetie's been excellent for Tony Herlihy. Don't have a strong opinion on it, Greg. I think whoever's up against the marker pegs and getting the right type of run might be the horse to beat. And that may mean manners early, intent early, is possibly the deciding factor. Forced to have a bet, maybe Cold Chisel, but there's absolutely no reason to think You're Doing Amazing Sweetie may not be slightly more advanced than these horses. Well done, by the way, to Barry Purden and Scott Phelan. They have 4 in this race and 3 in the fillies final. So a bit of a lesson there for people. You're thinking, well, you know, if these guys, a Hall of Fame trainer, has them up and running, and he had Merlin and Sooner the Better up and running this time last year, and a year later, they're still Group 1 horses. With the change of seasons, maybe some of these 2-year-olds we don't need to be quite as patient with. They'll tell you, Greg, but when a trainer as good as Barry Purden is lining up 7 2-year-olds this week for big money, you start to think to yourself, what are some of these horses waiting for?
Yep, absolutely. So $2.70 for Cold Chisel, Escape Artist $3.80. Zach Butcher has driven both of these at their first few starts, and I texted him last night and he said, I'll probably be on Cold Chisel, but he didn't absolutely confirm that, and I guess punters will probably follow him in that way. And then Always Be Elite was excellent, storming home for Todd Mitchell. Cops the wide front row draw though, and is an $8 chance. If you're thinking about getting involved in ownership, don't forget about Lincoln Farms Partnerships. Best way to go is to get onto their website. Go to, or just Google Lincoln Farms is probably the easiest way to go. I see some of the offerings they've got at the moment. A Sweet Lou out of Jesse's Cullen filly, the American Dealer family, which they've had good success with. A Vincent out of TriStar Brigade, that's Tri-Girl Brigade's family. An Art Major Alta Valencia Colt, and a Art Major Fizzy Lizzie filly. So, yep, go on there. The great thing about John Lynn Street is if you get a horse and it's not successful, they'll put you into another one, and he just wants you to be a winner. So get along and have a look at that. Brecon Farms have some good syndicates too, and they're behind the Young Gun Fillies final, the Delightful Lady. Let's have a look at Kiss winning, and winning nicely, Michael. Hard to get a line on some of these because these races have been canned thus far, but this Always Be Mickey filly does look a bit of quality, and that's her getting through on the inside of her stablemate and Ultimate Racy Girl.
I'm not really sure she enjoyed the whole passing lane experience, Greg. I think she's more of a big staying type of a filly, but she ended up there and she sort of tap danced her way down the lane. But yeah, I think she's probably the best of them so far. When you look at her there, a bit of scope to her. So yeah, I think she'll be the best of them without a great database, Greg, to fall back on. So what you've seen there, punters, is basically the entire lead up. That's everything. So make of that what you want, and I think the bookies were giving a pretty fair price at $2. I think a lot of these horses, Greg, like Copy That, the bookies have said, well, we can't have this or that too short. But what's going to happen is the punters, as they tend to in harness racing, will all gravitate towards the same horses. They'll gravitate towards Kiss, 2-year-old boys race, not so sure. Absolutely they'll gravitate towards Copy That. And the biggest betting horse of the entire week will be Merlin. So you're going to see a lot of horses really, really tighten up before Friday night. And a lot of horses who, as you watch the show, might be $2 or high $2. So Copy That and Merlin will start odds on.
Yep, that will certainly change in that regard. Looking forward to those features coming out of Alexandra Park. And of course, the biggest of them all, and as we did last week, and I'd like to do right throughout the remainder of the season, we go back and have a look at a historic. Here's the great Lazarus winning his Northern Derby, Michael. That's Buster Brady on his outside, who batted on so solidly. But have a look at this, and what was ahead for him was unknown. What we now know is he was exceptional at 3 and he only got better.
Well, he won the New Zealand Cup by 10 lengths when technically he was 4 then, but he would have been 3 under the new age system. So, Greg, he would have won the New Zealand Cup by 10 lengths as a 3-year-old if it was run under the current age regime. What a great horse he was. And you hear a lot of talk about goats and greatest of all times, and he's not the greatest of all time. He's not Cardigan Bay. We don't get carried away, and he's done, his own body of work shows us what a great horse he was. But I think sometimes, Greg, you forget how good these horses are, then you go back and watch the videos and you go, oh my God. So good lesson there. If you ever want to get carried away about a horse, go back and watch Far Lap or Cardigan Bay or Lazarus or whoever, put a bit of perspective in your mind, because I think probably the most overused word in the world, Gregory, apart from absolutely, is the word goat, because I don't think most people understand what it actually means. There can only be one greatest of all time. So Lazarus isn't that, but pretty darn good.
Yeah, and how appropriate, Michael. That was the 100th Northern Derby as well. So in terms of history, yeah.
Greg, really. just on the Northern Derby, the last 8 Northern Derbies, 6 for the All-Stars, 2 for Crandalgetti. Only 2 trainers or training entities have won the last 8 Northern Derbies.
There you go. Looking forward to the big one there on Friday night out of Alexandra Park. So Mick mentioned before, we're getting very close to the race by Grins. Here's a look at the market. This will be shaped this week in many ways, Michael, because 380 Akuta, 420 Old Town Road, Self-Assured 450, Beatty Joe 550, the same for Copy That, Better Eclipse and Krug at $11. So I suppose it's punter beware, and really watching Friday night's race may well shake this market down, because if Copy That dominates them, like we think he may well do, then his price will shorten considerably.
I think it's a no-bet race, an absolute no-bet race, the race by Grins, because it's so even. I think there's maybe 5 winning chances, and it entirely comes down to barrier draws. You put Self-Assured at barrier 2, he starts favourite. Copy That the same. Put Beatty Joe at barrier 2, he's $4 or $5. Put him on the second line, he's $15. And probably the one horse who will be in the market regardless is Old Town Road, because he's got such a big finishing kick. But you put Old Town Road at barrier 2, not 1, because 1 can get cross. But barrier 2, he might start favourite. You put him on the second line, he might start $10. You don't need to panic here, punters. There's no value in this market for you. You just wait.
Yep.
Good idea from David Branch and his team. They have their big sweepstake. Now, there's 2,000 tickets available at $100 each. I realise not everybody has $100, but you might have a syndicate. Get your mates together, the family together. You go into a draw to get a horse in the race by Grins. If you get that horse and it wins, you get 50 grand. So, as I said, if you've got 10 people for $10 each, and I realise not everybody has spare money, I get that. But if you do have that, great. trainers like Nicky Chilcott are getting stable syndicates together where they're saying we will do this together and try and get a horse. Not everybody watching the show is going to own a horse in the race by Grins, but for $100 you or your friends can have a chance to have a horse racing for $50,000 for you and support Cambridge and what they're trying to do. So pretty simple, just Google Cambridge Raceway and you have the chance to get tickets for that $100 sweepstake with the chance to win $50K.
Yep, great idea. Get involved in that. Wrapping up the series that was run over the weekend, the last heat of it, the Revel Douglas Junior Drivers. Leah Hibble took it out by 1 point over Alicia Harrison, who was on course. Had a win on the day there at the Mott. Crystal Hackett, Sam Thornley, Zev Meredith and Nathan Delaney, that would be. Leah Hibble was absolutely delighted to be able to take that series out, and it's an important series, and it shows great respect to Revel Douglas, who was a big part of the northern scene for such a long period of time. All right, as we go to our break, the IRT maiden win of the week. Here she is, Fortify, bred by the Renwicks in front. Earplugs remained in, Blair Orange in the bike. She's beautifully bred by Better's Delight out of Fortune Lover, and she did this in the box seat on every Wednesday night.
Fortify holding them all at bay here is going to win very easily with a leg in the air. In fact, Fortify too good.
So here's Bollinger beating Lumen Shaley and creating history, just the second domestic trainer to win 2,500. Mark Purden, of course, brother Barry achieving that too. He's on about 2,600 odd wins, but yeah, we had a nice chat to him, Michael, on SENZ Trots Talk on Sunday, and he reflected on some of those great wins, the 230 odd Group 1 winners he had, and where he's at in his life, Michael. But that's a heck of a milestone, 2,500 training wins. Of course, he's done it in partnership with Grant Payne. He's done it in partnership with Natalie Rasmussen, and of course more recently with Hayden Cullen. So yeah, Bollinger getting the job done for him. Yeah, pretty great milestone there, 2,500 training wins.
Probably appropriate that it comes at Addington too. I mean, the body of Mark's work has been as training in Canterbury, even though he's a North Island boy.
Yep.
He's achieved this in under 30 years, which very quick math means around 80 winners a year. Both him and Barry have gone past 2,500 domestic winners and a truckload of Australian winners. But neither of them have been about training big teams for a long time. Mark has parried down enormously in recent years, and he's not, trucking horses around lots of different meetings to try and win races. And Barry and now Scott haven't been doing that for a long time. So they're huge numbers in the scheme of what they do for a business. And what would be really interesting for someone like Mark and Barry and Scott at the moment is what the average earnings of the horses they would line up would be. So the average Mark Purden trained horse, now Mark and Nathan, for the season, once you got to the end of the season, what the average they earn would be really interesting. I would have to say, Greg, it would be enormously more than the sales day average. I think the average horse they line up in a season would be able to win more than $50,000 because they probably only line up 40 of them and they win more than $2 million a year. So
considerably more, yeah.
So yep. Quick math would suggest that per season, the horses they actually race are winning more than the average price. When I always say to people when they ask me about buying horses, I say if you can get the money back in 1 year, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
So yes, it takes a while to get them there, but the average earnings for Mark in recent years would be enormous.
All right, speaking of Mark, let's have a look at a horse that he returns with Nathan in Daredevil. This is race number 2 at Addington on Friday night to run alongside that brilliant meeting from Alexandra Park. That's him outside the leader. He's a pretty smart horse, Daredevil. He's been given time. His winning performance was back in September where he beat Jezebel, who's been a subsequent winner. And that was a pretty nice trial. He's drawn to the second row and he might need some luck from there. He follows out Better Be Sharp, who has a modicum of gate speed, so I wouldn't think he'd be too far off. Wanted to show you this though, Michael. Here's Mwanga. He had a gallop in the early stages of this race. That's him getting to the outside in the Regan Todd colours, and you're thinking, oh yeah, it's not a bad performance from him. This is a New Zealand record run from Silk, by the way. Have a look at his last 50 metres. Like, he had absolutely no right to get into third, and in another couple of strides he would have won the race. So it was a big performance, and he comes up with barrier 1. It's 2600. He looks a good, strong, staying type, and he is my best bet of the week. I think Graham Hand's got him in his multi too, so yeah, really interesting there. Let's have a look at Sam's Town, and he just keeps on winning, Michael. He's won 4 of his last 5. That's Heisenberg in front for John Dunn. Sam's Town gets the win here, does it really nicely. He's got his work cut out this week though, Michael. He's off 20 metres. He's been so brave lately in all those country cups. The $90,000 final will be run at Addington Raceway on the 12th of May. So these horses have got a wee way to get to, and he takes on Mighty Louie, Corrivelli Star, who's been low flying, Buckskin, Heisenberg, Terry. It's a good race, the NZB Air Freight handicap, and it won't be easy for him, but it's a pretty good program there at Addington, a race that you'll love, a mile trot, Michael. I'm sure you're looking forward to that. Oscar Bonavina's there though, so looking forward to seeing him take on Majestic Lavros, who's trolled really nicely, but yeah, we'll probably just leave that there, eh? Earlier in the week, Michael Guerin, our intrepid reporter, managed to get an interview with the Candyman. Yes, the bloke they call the Candyman is Greg Sugars. He and his wife Jess Tubbs doing an amazing job, and they're bringing horses to New Zealand. Better Eclipse will be in the race by Grins, and Michael chatted not only about him, but another ex-Kiwi in AG's White Sox.
Okay, Greg Sugars is coming to New Zealand, the Candyman. Good morning to you, Greg. Mate, great to have your company here. And I know you've been to New Zealand before because I saw you drive Sushi to win the Derby at Alexandra Park. But have you ever trained, you or your wife Jess, trained a horse over here?
Yeah, good morning, Mick. No, it's first time for us campaigning horses across the ditch. So something we've always thought would be a great experience and something we always would like to do. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it. And as you say, the last time I was in the North Island competing, I was behind Sushi, and yeah, he was a victor on both occasions. I sat behind him, so I'm undefeated. So let's hope we can keep that strike rate up.
Can only go downhill from here, Greg.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's going to be hard.
You're up against a pretty tough school. So Better Eclipse, let's start with him. Won the City of Melton Plate last week, and he looks back to something like his best. But he's going to be coming into a really hot school for the race by Grins. Where do you think he's at? Because this time last year, he looked the next big thing, and he's had moments of that this spring, summer, and into the autumn, Greg. Other times, he's been a naughty Better Eclipse.
Yeah, that's right. No, he's thrown a spanner in the works there a couple of occasions, which have, been really testing our patience. But no, apart from that, his form has been pretty consistent overall. Yeah, he took all before him last time in, really, and went through his grades and age racing really, really well. And was thrown into the deep end and sort of handled it quite well. And it's probably fair to say he's not a hugely improved horse this time around. I think he's still competing every bit as good as what he was last time around. The competition here has certainly got stronger. There's a lot more depth to our racing than probably what there was 12 months ago, which makes it hard at that top end level. But yeah, I think he's in very good order. Yeah, his last couple of runs, his personal sectionals have been sensational. So yeah, he's in very good shape.
Okay, you're up against a different bunch of horses for himself. Assured, copy that. A horse you'll know well, Josh Dickey's horse, who looks really like one of the next big things in Australasian harness racing. Where do you see Better Eclipse fitting into the race by Grins against those horses, against the Old Town Roads or even the Akutas on April the 14th?
Yeah, look, I think he'll hold his own very well with all those horses. But probably the same can be said for a lot of the horses. Lucky in Running is going to play a huge role, but he's the type of horse that, given the good trip, he'll follow any sort of speed and still hit the line just as good off a slow half or off a fast half. He still finishes off just as well. So racing good quality opposition is certainly advantageous to the way he races. He mightn't be able to get there and do the bullocking work from start to finish and take all the pressure, mid race and that sort of thing. But I have no doubt he's capable of mixing it with any of those horses that you've just mentioned.
One horse, Greg, we know who can follow any speed is 888. He spent a lot of his career here. He's been fantastic for you and Jess over there. I know he's coming back to Auckland, primarily aimed around the Carnival and the Auckland Cup, but there's 3 spots left at this stage in the race by Grins. Try and talk us into getting one of those for 888.
Yeah, he's a marvellous horse. He's certainly been a special horse for us, and was probably the first horse to really join our stable and take us to that top echelon racing. And he's competing every bit as good now, or as well now as probably ever has throughout his career. His last 5 runs in particular, you look at his form; it's actually pretty good form for this sort of race. I think like 5 starts ago, he ran 3rd behind Copy That in a Ballarat Cup. And Honolulu Bay ran 2nd, and he was only beaten 3 metres, and he beat Old Town Road on that occasion, and then won a free for all at Melton 2 starts later, and then competed in Sydney, where he was pretty unlucky in a Miracle Mile sprint, only beaten about 7 or 8 metres, and beat home BD Joe in that occasion, and then the week later he come from last and ran 3rd. Behind Bondi Lockdown, and ran the fastest half of any horse on the night, including any horse that ran in the Miracle Mile. So he just shows he's in terrific form. He's beat a few of the horses home that have mentioned that have already got spots in the slot race, and as you say, he's already going to be booked on the plane. He's coming over regardless whether he gets a slot or not, because we think he's good enough to compete in the other races that are around the carnival and hopefully the Auckland Cup. So he's definitely a horse that's in form, and he won't be out of place if he did happen to get selected as one of the remaining slots.
So just as somebody's watching this and they like that whole spiel, you would say yes to a slot?
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly wouldn't knock that back for sure.
On the subject of drivers, are you going to pick up a New Zealand driver? I presume you'll be driving Better Eclipse in a race like the race by Grins. If you happened to get a 888 into a race, or if they do clash at other races, would you bring a driver across, or would you pick up a Kiwi?
Not 100% sure what we'd do there at this stage. We'll have to have a chat with the connections and see what they want to do. My gut feeling is they'd probably want to go with a local that obviously will know the other horses and know the conditions and all those sorts of things. So, but yeah, we'll have a chat with the connections if and when that decision needs to be made.
Any chance we might see one of the most famous people in Australian harness racing, Father Brian Glasheen, making the trip across the Tasman? He's been here plenty of times before, and of course he's a small shareholder in 888.
Absolutely. No, he very, very rarely misses a race, and he loves to travel. So I would say there's a huge chance he'll be making his trip across.
A horse heaps of us love over here in New Zealand is AG's White Sox, and he won the Stampede last Saturday at Melton. I see he's going around in the Captain Sandy free-for-all this week against 888. You talk about old marvels like 888. He might be just as marvellous and even a little bit older.
Yeah, amazing horse. He's sort of been through the wars, and he's had his share of problems over the years, but he's just a warrior. Just keeps competing, and he was probably going through a little bit of a lull in his form there. And when he joined our stable, talking to the connections, they sort of thought his best days may well and truly be gone, and might have been nearing retirement. But we've been able to sort of spark him back up. And yeah, his last probably half a dozen starts have been sensational, and just to get a win on the board was a really satisfying effort for all of us here. So he's one of our favourites. He's a real character of a horse, and it's a pleasure to be around. So it's a real honour for us to be entrusted with a horse like him, and he's done a super job.
5 years ago, if I'd told you and Jess you would have those 3 horses in the stable, you would have been stoked. You would have thought, well, that's 3 open class, genuine horses. This is pretty cool. They're not even the stable stars. Just Believe is the stable star, Inter-Dominion Trotting champion, Great Southern Star champion. I know you got options with him over the autumn, and I know he's provisionally booked to come to New Zealand. How likely are we to see the Inter-Dominion champion here?
Yeah, probably a 50-50 decision at this stage. He's had a long campaign since joining us, and had a lot of hard racing. So we've just sort of try to freshen him up at the moment since his run up in Sydney, and focus on his main aim really later on in the year is obviously another crack at an Inter-Dominion later in the year. But a lot of water to go under the bridge before we get there, and we're just sort of freshening him up at the moment. So he's got a little bit of time before we have to make that decision whether we put him on the plane to head across for the Rowe Cup. But it's certainly on the cards as an option.
Greg, the team for you and Jess has grown enormously in the last 2 years. We used to think of you as a driver who occasionally had horses at the races. Obviously under Jess's name, it's more than occasional now. How many horses are there these days at Lara J Farm, and are the doors shut? Is there room for more? Because the New Zealanders seem to like sending them over there.
Yeah, that's right. No, we're always looking for new stock, obviously. It's sort of a bit of a revolving door at the moment. We have to make room for one to come in and one goes out, sort of thing. But we're probably working about 35 horses at the moment. It's probably the most we've ever had. A lot of them are sort of up and racing at the moment. So it's a good problem to have, trying to find space for new horses that have been sent our way. And, we've been very lucky over the last season and a half, been offered some quality horses amongst the stock that have come through. So it makes life a lot easier. And, we've had a great time traveling a few carnivals and that sort of thing. And now to take the opportunity to do what we're looking at doing, coming across to see you guys over there, is something that early days we never really thought that was where we were going to settle. So I suppose it's fair to say that it's certainly grown bigger and faster than what either of us expected it to do. But we're not complaining about it, that's for sure.
All right, 35 horses at home, only 2 people as a trainers. Does that mean everybody gets a trip to New Zealand, or has that not been discussed yet?
Yeah, no, not sure. We got a good support staff behind us here, and we're still not sure logistically how everything's going to work. I'm certainly going over right from the start, and I'll settle the boys in, and then we may have to swap at some stage depending on how long we're going to be away for. And there'll be at least one of us will be there at all times.
Mate, we're looking forward to having you guys here. It's great to have the Australian involvement in the race. Great to have one of the really developing teams in Australia. And we do hope Just Believe can make it over here. But if he can't, well, we're going to have to send some pretty good horses to try and beat him for the Inter-Dominions coming up at the end of the year, because he saw off some pretty good ones last time. Mate, congratulations to you and to Jason. Thanks for joining us on the box seat to update us on the Aussie invasion.
No worries at all, Mick. My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
He's a rare talent, is Greg Sugars. Michael, eloquent speaker, outstanding horseman, and really looking forward to him coming to New Zealand. He's been here before, of course. He won a Northern Derby with Sushi.
As he said, Greg, unbeaten. He's had 2 drives in New Zealand for 2 wins.
Yep.
Quality guy. His wife, Jess, they're good people. And you want people like that in the race. You want them to come here and be part of our harness racing scene and add depth and skill. So I think it's great they're coming. So Triple Weight is coming, and it's really easy to make a case, as Greg did there, that he should get a slot in the race by Grins, because he's a genuine Group 1 horse. So I think he's in the mix. He races this week at Melton, Saturday night. Watch that if you have a slot still available. Interesting one's Just Believe. So I think he has options. There's a few rumours, bit of chat. Just Believe could be invited to Sweden, or he could potentially come over here. Now, Elder Baron Zeus is coming. We'll talk to Brett Lilly in the next couple of weeks before he gets here. Just Believe 50-50. Obviously, both looking to take on Muscle Mountain. But with him only being 50-50, Greg, Muscle Mountain just starts to firm and firm and firm in your mind for all of these big races, because I just don't see any of the domestic trotters, with our 2, 3 and 4 being retired or injured, being able to get near him. So these Australians probably hold the key to just how dominant Muscle Mountain can be this autumn.
Yeah, looking forward to them coming across. Hopefully we'll get to see Just Believe. It's the Something About Mary this week, and we'll see Queen Elida going around once again. Takes on I Am Ready Jet, from Barrier 2. I'm Ready Jet rather, so yeah, probably won't be as easy this week, but she should be pretty hard to beat. Let's have a look at Southland. And last Saturday they had a pretty good meeting down there. Here's Sweet Diamond, 53.8 in the performance by her in the Southern Oaks heat. Really strong to the line in the hands of Johnny Cox. A lot to like about her, and she got home in 57.28.1. So nice sort of a filly she is, and expect to see her go really well in this whole Oaks series. And nice run there. Da Vinci was labelled on the program by Russell Ferguson, and Craig got the job done. Big run from the second horse here in the Bruce Negus colours, Borrasconi, who had an early gallop, then went to Wingatui on Monday and won. So I know Bruce has got a fair rap on this horse, so it was a good run there and a decent sort of a winning performance there on Monday at Wingatui. So look forward to seeing the progress of it, but Da Vinci's already shown at Addington he's a bit of quality, and that was a nice win there. And so's this horse, who went round in the Derby in December. John Hay with another pretty smart one here. This was the Centennial Cup, and he was in front, Wheels of Fortune, and he was just a little bit too strong. 4:02.8 for the 2 miles, home in 56 and 28. He's a big, strong type, and yep, he was just a little bit too strong there. And just mentioning that Wingatui meeting, 3 out of the 6 races run there on Monday. Rory McIlwright was the winning driver. So that's a look down south. Speaking of that, Waimate Cup, it is on Sunday, and they race on the grass there at Oamaru. Let's have a look at the preview for this one. And it's a good field, this. Tom Martin in front here. Buckskin, who goes to Addington on Friday night, as opposed to going to this race. Sat parked and was really good. It's a decent field this week, though. She's Tufts there, who put in so many good runs on the coast at their recent meeting. Better's Tart starts off the 35 metres, but Tom Martin wouldn't have to go much better than this. He gets in off the front, and if he's in front, he'll take some running down. So looking forward to the Waimate Cup there on Sunday. But Tom Martin in those famous colours, the Graham Court colours, winning 3 New Zealand Cups, of course, with Terror to Love. Not suggesting Tom Martin's in that league, but he certainly is capable of winning the Waimate Cup. Time for us to take another quick break here on your box seat. On the other side, we'll wrap up Team Teal, come up with some Graham Hand and hand milking best bets of the week, and summarise where you can go harness racing this weekend. In your home straight, in your box seat, and as we know, over the last 6 weeks, and even a little bit longer than that, the Team Teal promotion has been going on, and we've got some final figures around that for you. We confirmed last week that Sarah O'Reilly had the title there, if you like, with 15 wins. The Tomlinsons 7 apiece, Gemma Thornley with 6, as did Sam Otley. And congratulations to everyone who won a race during the Team Teal promotion. Total of 75 wins there, Michael, and $35,000 raised through various promotions, including they had a quiz night at Addington Raceway recently too. So it's a great cause. 35,000 raised will go a long way to helping fight ovarian cancer.
Yeah, and great to see not only everybody in harness racing getting behind it to be part of our community, Greg, but of course working with our friends across the Tasman. It's an Australasian campaign, and there's enormous buy-in. So yeah, sometimes people who don't like racing are derogatory about racing and say that, you know, we take. But this is giving back to our community in the most of serious ways. So yeah, to everybody involved, to Courtney from Harness Racing New Zealand, and to those people who do the hard work, and to those who sponsor these wonderful young ladies. So thank you for doing that, and yeah, long may it rain.
Yep, absolutely. Let's have a look at where you can go harness racing this week. The Waikato Bay of Plenty Harness Racing Club race on Thursday night, an 8-race program there, and they get things underway at 5:29. We mentioned Alexandra Park, huge meeting, multiple Group 1s, and of course the 2-year-old Young Guns finals to boot. Looking forward to the Derby and the Oaks. They get underway at 5:38. A decent 10-race card out of Addington to coincide with that. 5:30 is the start time there. And of course, Waimate have their cup meeting at Oamaru on Sunday, and they have an 11-race program, 12 minutes past 12. Those odds out with the TAB at around about 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. So looking forward to that. Michael, you got back on board with Cold Chisel last week. I let you down with Lumen Shaley, who couldn't quite get to Bollinger. So this week, what's your best bet?
I just can't go past Merlin. I know they're not easy races to win, but everything about this race stacks up well for him. I think he'll lead. I think he'll then trail sooner the better, and I think he'll use the passing lane to win. So for me, Merlin on top. And look, I think if you're probably getting $2 by the time you see this, you're still doing well.
All right, so he's the best bet for you. I've gone for Moanga, and you can see why. Sectionally, he was absolutely outstanding last week, and comes up with Barrier 1. He's got options there. Robbie Close is suspended, I'm pretty sure, so just not a confirmed driver. Maybe Tim Williams might be driving him, because I don't think he's going to the Northern meeting. So if Tim's aboard, I'm sure he'll steer him in the right direction. So I'm happy to be with Moanga, as is Graham Hand. He's gone for his multi, Moanga, into Escape Artist in the Brecon Farms Young Gun final. So, yeah, the Cardigan Bay Stakes from the inside barrier. So that'll be a nice wee sort of a multi there. So Moanga into Escape Artist. It's an important week, Michael, for the reasons we mentioned at the top of the show, but also for Alexandra Park. You're absolutely right. They return with a big banger meeting this week. Great to see the depth in the Woodlands Northern Derby. Huge numbers numerically there. In the past few years we haven't had those numbers, but it's going to be one heck of a contest, and often in a derby something gets thrown up that you don't expect to happen, and maybe that might be Blair Orange on Sherlock pushing through and putting some pressure into it. Who knows? I can't wait for Friday night. It should be superb. Yeah,
I'm going to be on track, Greg, to get us some interviews for next week and get all the feedback from what's going on there, because the next 2 months are massive for Alexandra Park and Cambridge, of course. They have the race. If you haven't been to Alexandra Park for a while, and a lot of people haven't for various reasons, dating back to COVID and a whole lot of other things that have gone wrong with the track being damaged, now's the time to go back. It's a nice time of year in Auckland. As you said, there's tables at top of the park. It is actually still a really good experience, and I would love to see people re-engage with it, because these are good horses. Some of them are really good horses. So as the galloping season starts to slowly parry down, Greg, harness racing gets the chance to jump back into the limelight over the next couple of months. And we'll do our bit to make sure that you are kept informed about that. Yeah, go to alexandrapark.co.nz, get up to the top of the park. It's a great experience. And don't forget about Cambridge's sweepstake. You got a chance to be a part of the Race by Grins and win your share of $50,000. That's been your box seat for this week. Michael and I will be back in 7 days. Until then, happy punting. The Box Seat brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link for your worldwide harness coverage. New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, where winning begins. Brecon Farms. Stonewall Stud. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Australasian-wide Garrard's Horse and Hound. Ringwood Farms. Lincoln Farms. Harness Racing New Zealand. And the clubs Addington, Ashburton, Alexandra Park and Cambridge.